Thank you, Leslie. I don't know if any of you have picked up on the very subtle nature of our worship today, the selection of not one, but two of the most notable anthems adopted for recognizing and celebrating this beautiful spectrum of affections we see in the world. It was intentional. See, in worship, sometimes we go for a subtle presentation, but for National Coming Out Day, a message and a service that's more direct is appropriate. True Colors is more or less the anthem for National Coming Out Day. The only other song more anthemic for coming out is I'm Coming Out. But over the years, friends, it's become clear that not everyone even knows this. Many people have gone on happily for a lifetime not knowing how central these tunes are to the life of those whose affection does not look and feel like the norm in this society. And if you don't know this, don't worry. You're in good company. Well, really, you're in fabulous company. Because you see, when the great Diana Ross, whom we all might recall was the first singer, we all saw when the pandemic brought us online for worship with her rendition of Someday We'll Be Together. When Diana Ross recorded her song, I'm Coming Out, she didn't know that it would be taken as an anthem for a movement of people who chose to share with the world more openly whom they loved. She didn't even know what I'm Coming Out meant. Nile Rodgers and Bernard Edwards, who also wrote We Are Family for Sister Sledge, they were the founders of the band Chic, and they wrote I'm Coming Out for Diana Ross at her request after she saw Chic in concert with her daughter. Ross wanted to change up her sound and wanted the founders of Chic to help her, and they were delighted. So, after Nile Rodgers knew he'd be working on Ross's new album, he was out one night in New York City. He was at a bar in Midtown, and he saw 3 different female impersonators dressed up as Diana Ross. And they were all in the bathroom together, primping and getting ready. It must have been quite a sight to see 3 Diana Rosses there. And it was fate. The song just came to him in a flash in that moment. It sort of smacked him in the face, and he ran outside. He called his writing partner, Bernard Edwards, and said, write this down. I'm coming out, and I'll tell you why tomorrow. And then he hung up and went back inside to party. Sometimes that's how things come to us, right? You know, in a drag bar bathroom in Midtown after midnight. I feel you, Niall. I have been there. So let me say to you all, Happy Coming Out Day, my friends. It is a fun treat when a holiday falls on an actual Sunday, like this one does this year. See, the celebration of this day began 32 years ago with the National March on Washington for lesbian and gay rights. And since that time, a movement of people convinced of the power of coming out to friends and family, coming out as someone who has and possibly demonstrates affection for others of a same or similar gender is a powerful tool in helping others to live lives of more openness as well. The power of delivering the clear message, the unvarnished news to others is important. And so this day was adopted as a day when people might choose to make this decision and to come out. But with all language, and in particular with prepositions, comes the question, come out of what? Now, many of us know the answer to that. The simple answer in our brains might be the closet. The closet is the place where those who are thought to be hiding their sexual identity from others are hiding. Things like, oh, they're in the closet, I think, or I wish they'd just come out of the closet. They seem so sad. These are the kinds of things people say when they wonder whether someone is actually denying their sexual identity or the ways they wish they could show affection. So, Coming Out Day was originally built, at least linguistically, around the idea of the closet. Now, I confess, I find the image of the closet a little funny, just to me personally. It might be because growing up, I happened to have a very big closet. And, well, I like to sort of hang out in there with my stuffed animals and toys, to the extent that I slept in there quite often. I'd make up a little bed, and I'd pull the doors closed, and I'd go to sleep. I remember one night a friend of mine was sleeping over and I said, "Oh, we can just both sleep in my room." He was a little confused because there was only the one bed, and I proudly showed him my closet bed. And we were kind of right at that age when you sort of notice some of your friends are a little different maybe. He didn't say anything, but I could tell he thought it was a little weird I was sleeping in a closet. But it didn't change how much we played ping pong, how much we swam, or just hung out and played Nintendo. And in the morning, I got up, came out of the closet, and we made some cereal. No big deal. But friends, for many, coming out is a big deal. And not everyone just gets to make a bowl of cereal when they do so and move on. For my life, I will remember what I had on my plate that night. For my life, I will remember where every member of my family was sitting. For my life, I will remember what was spoken in the 10 minutes or so following my telling my family that I happened to like guys. It's an event in the lives of many that stays indelible in their mind. I was eating peas, in case you're wondering. I can still kind of see them there on the fork, fumbling to get them to stay. In my case, to be honest, I was failing my classes. In high school, I was staring out the window for hours at a time at falling snow. I was playing really, really sad songs on the piano. I remember once my mother asking if I was all right after playing a few songs by Stephen Sondheim. So for me, explaining why I was feeling the way I was feeling helped to lessen the burden of what I was carrying, seemingly alone. And it wasn't a jubilant occasion, friends. Just like for many parents or loved ones, hearing that someone they love likes people of the same gender is hard to hear. Only because of the fear that it seems like a harder life is ahead. And those concerns were expressed to me in that moment, as was the assurance that I will always be safe in my home and loved for exactly who I am. My story, though, might as well be a fairy tale compared to what many go through when they come out to family and friends. And coming out a few decades ago, like say in 1980, when Diana Ross recorded her new tune, inspired by Nile Rodgers, and after seeing 3 Diana Rosses, wasn't easy, even for Diana Ross. And what I mean by that is that she recorded the song, which she loved. Then she took it to her producer and the head of the label, and there, the head of the label explained to her for the first time that coming out is what gay people do when they tell other people they're gay. And hearing this upset her. She went home, Diana Ross went home, and she cried. She was really mad at the songwriters for taking her in this direction, for having her sing a song about gay people. She was really worried for her own reputation and how making this bold a statement would fare for her own career. Now, eventually, she came around. It probably helped having a major, major hit on her hands. And that feeling of learning something that you had no idea was true is jarring. And that is a lot of what I have learned people are actually feeling when the people they love come out. They're not worried about their careers necessarily like Diana Ross was. More often, they're worried about whether a 16 or 17-year-old or younger these days is really ready for all that telling this truth really means. And whether they have really reached a considered decision about whom it is they fancy and whom it is they want to love, because the fear for people who love those who are coming out is that it's a harder life somehow. And I gotta say, it's taken a little while, but I think I finally get this now. Friends, if you think I'm a know-it-all now, you should have seen me at 17. I was insufferable. So when my folks asked me if I was, quote, sure, I was indignant. As many young people are when they get a question like that. At the time, my parents weren't that much older than I am now. And I gotta tell you, now I understand why my folks asked me, are you sure? Because friends, haven't we all seen a lot in our lives by now? Haven't we seen the way the lines between gender and sexuality, between affection and desire, are more like suggestions for many people than they are like bright lines. Working with young people in pastoral settings, listening to friends talk about what their college and post-college years were like, especially when there were a few shots of tequila involved, I have learned personally, without any help from Professor Kinsey, that we're not all always so sure of whom it is we want to be cuddling with or making out with at any given moment as the world thinks we should be. And this is evident in the beautiful ways different well-known expressions of romance and affection are becoming more and more beautifully lived and felt. But this spectrum, this rainbow of ways of loving, still isn't easy for people. I know bisexual men and women who feel they must hide that part of themselves to avoid scaring off potential serious partners. I know asexual people who fear the constant barrage of questions they receive whenever they come out as asexual. I sort of yearn for the day when we can all just come out together as liking to do what we like with whom we like, and we can just move the heck on, please. And as wonderful as that may be, as clear and plain as a song might be in a worship service, the subtleties and nuances of how an individual might feel and express their own affection for others are rarely so clear. And how we express those affections to those around us can bring on unsubtle and less than nuanced messages from those around us, friends. Attempts many parents make to say things like, "I'm just sad because the path you're on will be harder," which seems like something nice to say, frankly, isn't that kind and isn't totally true anymore. Comments like this immediately lump a person into a class of other persons based solely on who they love. Now, I've been hearing stories about human relationships for a generation now. And I gotta tell you, friends, there are many ways that being strictly heterosexual is a lot more challenging than not. Just ask roughly 90% of heterosexual men on dating apps whether being straight is easier than being gay when trying to get a date. Let alone having someone simply return a freaking message on one of those apps. The only answer anyone really needs when they come out is this: wonderful. I'm glad you've got a good sense of who you like and how you like to be treated. Now finish your P's. And if possible, can you please stop playing so many Sondheim songs sung by women? No, I'm just kidding. It's striking me now that I have talked more about sexuality in these minutes than most ministers probably will do in their careers. But as anyone who has taken our whole lives, or Al, will tell you, when we are speaking about sexuality, we are speaking about affection and care, understanding, companionship, identity, and love. And let's be honest, for a lot of our lives, a lot of what we do, a lot of what we think about, a lot of what feels best on any given day concerns our sexuality and the sexuality of others. Advertising and marketing seems fixated on it. The way many single people spend a ton of their time on phones is focused on it. The fitness industry, the calorie counting industry, and even the romantic getaway industry, which is an essential part of the backbone of the economy of this very island, is focused on it. It's a huge part of many of our lives. So taking a day, sort of let folks know where you stand with regard to who you'd like to kiss isn't really that big a departure from the ways we are asked constantly to consider that question on a daily basis. Diana Ross clearly ended up releasing the single as the first track on her album. It was an enormous hit in 1980, making a new sound and a new way of talking in the 80s than was happening in the 70s. And yes, part of what Ross discovered was that the DJs in gay bars in New York City were the tastemakers for a lot of the rest of the country. The song took off, became a classic, and since 1980, Diana Ross has opened virtually every concert with that song. The album that song appears on is called Upside Down. And Diana Ross explained to Nile Rodgers that she wanted to turn her whole career, her whole life, upside down. And friends, when we start telling the people we love already who we really want to be loving someday, that is a way of turning our lives upside down in a lot of settings. Now, in a Unitarian Universalist setting, or someone who spends time with this community in worship and in justice work, it doesn't seem like that big a deal. I get it. I'm literally preaching to the UU choir here. And it might not be that big a deal to us personally. If so, fantastic. But one of the things about living in a community like this, of spending time with people who really just want you to be kissing whoever you want to kiss, is that sometimes we forget, sometimes I forget, that there are still many ways that coming out of the closet for people is a danger, is a way that leads to painful and possibly fatal repercussions. Tomorrow will mark 22 years since Matthew Shepard died after being tied to a fence, beaten, and left to die by two men who offered him a ride home from a bar in Laramie, Wyoming. Though reporting on this crime has been ongoing for years, still many hold that hatred or fear of Matthew's sexuality was part of the motivation for it. Many brave souls who come out of the closet do so for their life, to live it more fully, to save it from depression, anxiety, and despair. And some are met on the outside of those doors with depression, pain, and violence, both emotional and physical. Every year, the emotional toll of reading the names of all of our siblings in the transgender communities around the globe who suffer violence and death during the Transgender Day of Remembrance is a stark and painful reminder of how far we really have to go as a whole people to strive for empathy in the world. And the quiet, subtle violence of self-hatred that claws at the closet doors of so many souls who want to be known, seen fully, who want to be held by arms they fear can never hold them, lead our siblings to lives of quiet despair, sometimes clouded dimly by the use of alcohol and other drugs to anesthetize that internal pain. But there are ways to help this. You are doing one of them right now. You are in a church right now that has championed the rights to teach that love is love is love, all the way to defending obscenity charges up to the U.S. Supreme Court and win it. You're in a church that believes the beloved community we hope to see can be made real in the world, but it depends upon, calls upon, needs people to love themselves and others as completely and fully as possible. It's in the name, friends, beloved community. You are in a church that not only has the back of all kinds of affectionate expressions, but that will wish you well on what you've discovered and won't even make you finish your P's. Because, friends, we are all coming out every day. We wake up a different person every day. And the ways we want to hold others and have them hold us or not change every day. We are each coming out every day, my friends, for our entire lives. In every way we choose love over fear for our life, for all our life, we are coming out. In every way we speak in ways that are welcoming, kind, and inclusive for all our life, we are coming out. In every way we let people know we are someone safe to talk with about who we want to be holding and who we want to be holding us for our life, for all our life, we are coming out. For all our life should not be spent focused on the petty nonsense of despots, no matter how scary they may be. For all our life should not be a quiet, passive exercise in waiting for others to find us here, no matter how comfortable it may be to do so. For all our life should not be one left wondering if the people we have in our lives are feeling the love we hold for them as fully and completely as we really do. We are loving one another for our life. We are supporting and cheering others for our life. And we are fighting for the freedom of others for our life. Because, friends, that is how we fight for our own lives and for all that is our life. May it ever be so. Blessed be, and amen.